So let's talk a little bit about the lighting setup inside of Arnold. So Arnold is a physically based renderer. So all the lighting comes into Arnold automatically set up for how it would actually function in a real world setting. Arnold also has its own render view. So if we click on that, you can see a little window just popped up there. It was converting the textures to a .tx, and if you had happened to catch that in my folder over here, I already have some .tx materials. So it's taking the PNGs and it's converting it over to a file format that it uses to render. Okay, so don't blow away these TXs, it's actually looking for those, and it's currently rendering. It's not being illuminated by anything. It doesn't recognize Maya's default light in there, so currently there's no light in there right now that it sees, so we need to drop in a light. And there's a number of different ways we can light this. We're probably going to drop in a couple of area lights. I want to get an overall illumination in here first, so what I'm going to do is, Arnold does this kind of automatic rendering thing here. It says run IPR. You can always uncheck that if it's using up memory. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that off right now, and I'm going to open up the render settings, and we should be under the Arnold render. Make sure that's on, and let's go ahead and come over to the Arnold tab, and I'm just going to go ahead and put these back to the default setting. I think this was at 1 here, and I'll kind of go through these and what they mean. Okay, but this is the default, and you actually get a pretty good render out of this. It looks a little low resolution and grainy because of the camera settings here, the AA settings being a little low. When your lighting is all set up and you're ready to go, this usually comes up to 8 for a final render. And diffuse can usually be up around 3, probably not above 4 or 5. Okay, and the rest of these will stay the same. Diffuse will usually come up to about a 2 or a 3 at the most. Okay, and then the ray depth is different than the diffuse up here. So the ray depth is actually calculating a bounce light or a secondary light in the scene. So as it casts a ray, it bounces. This is the number of times that it's bouncing in the scene and calculating that indirect lighting, which is also called global illumination. It acts very much like light does in the real world. If you look at a light source, it bounces on the ground, and then it bounces up onto objects in the scene, okay, or in the room. So we have all of these set here. What we're going to do first for our lighting is we're going to give it an overall lighting environment under background. We're going to click on this, and we've got some options here. I'm going to use just the first one, which is called a sky shader. It's going to drop a dome in. I'm going to close this down, and if we back out, we're going to see that dome right there. It also came up over here in the attribute editor. If you don't have the attribute editor open, that's Control A will open that. And the intensity is right here. So right now it's just defaulted as 1. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this run IPR again so we can see what's going on. I'm going to zoom into the character so you can see what's happened just by dropping in a light down. We've actually got, fairly nice overall even lighting here. And for a character model, when you're doing a turntable animation, it's sort of like the walk cycle. You're showing off the character. You're not doing any dramatic, colorful lighting. You just want to have a nice, consistent, well-lit scene where your model can be evaluated by the person looking at it. Okay, so this is a good start here. So we've got a few more things that we want to do. He looks a little flat, and that's just because we've got an overall flat lighting and inside a dome. Under the Arnold pull down, Arnold has its own set of lights that it uses. So it does recognize the Maya lights. They don't work the same just because they're not physically based, physically accurate for lighting and rendering. So you really want to stick with the lights inside of Arnold, and the most common one used is the area light. And I'm just going to grab that, drop there in the center, pull it up, angle it at our guy here, and maybe something like that. Okay. So there's nothing on here. You can't really see it doing anything different. That's because of the exposure. So if we start to raise the exposure up, I'm going to actually hold down Control key. I'm on a PC. I think it's the Command key on a Mac. And I'm just clicking and dragging in this box here and pulling this up. We should start to see it right about 10 is where you're going to notice it. Okay, so now you can actually see the shadow that it's casting right there, which is quite nice. I think I'm going to make this a little bigger, so I'm going to actually stretch it this way, maybe make it a little taller. The shadow is starting to just kind of wrap up on the back part of the seam there. I'm also going to just push it back like that and really get it way back there. Okay, so let's go back to our light here and click on that. So I'm right around 12. Okay, and we're starting to see some nice lighting on there. Okay, so something that happens with the area lights inside of Arnold, if I hit scale and I scale up, it's actually going to get brighter, and cast shadows are actually going to respond to that. So whenever you have a larger light source, your shadows get softer. If you have a small light source, you can see right there it's starting to happen. So I am going to kind of go for soft shadows here. I'm going to get this just about as big as the character. And then I'm going to take this down to, I think 11 was looking okay. Maybe 11.5. Okay, so you want to evaluate your character. It's all going to be based on the color of the texture, how far your light is from the character. That's going to determine the exposure number here. Okay, so we can pretty much ignore the rest of this down here. We don't really need to touch anything. This is getting into just some more advanced lighting setups here that we don't really need to get into. The default settings here are just fine. Okay, so I've got that light set up. I'm going to just kind of back out here and take a look at him. I mean, we could go with this. I feel like it needs just sort of a little bit of a rim light, even if it's just a little hint of a specular on the side there, just to kind of sweeten it up a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate this light, Control D, and you just saw the light double up there. And I'm going to take this. And this does not have a show manipulator on it, which is kind of one of the things I don't like about these lights. But it's well worth it. They light things much better than the lights inside of Maya. Okay, so I've got this placed over here. I'm gonna scale that up a little bit, and let's see, maybe angle it kind of like that. So you can kind of look top down on your character and just see how things are angled. You want this kind of pointing at your character, maybe like that. And if I come over here and kind of set him up like so, we're just starting to see a little bit of that right there. If I start to turn this up, we're going to see a lot more kind of wrapping around right there. Okay. You may also notice that you're seeing a little bit of the character's purple back is starting to bounce down onto the ground here. That is all part of the physically based rendering that's going on. So it's actually recognizing the color of the character, it's bouncing onto the ground and kind of creating a realistic scene here. He also has some nice soft shadows here making contact with the ground. That look good. I think I can probably pull this a little bit more to the back, angle it like that. Okay, I'm just kind of looking more for like a little sliver on the side here. And I might want to wrap it up on the top of his head a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that looks nice. So we got a little bit of separation right here. I'm going to just take it down a little bit. I don't want it too strong. Again, it's not so much about the lighting, it's just making it look nice. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. It doesn't have a really strong contact shadow. If I wanted to put one in there, I would probably drop another light on the top here and maybe keep it kind of close, and that would create more of a ground shadow. But I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is fine for a turntable animation. We've got a nice background here. It's just nice and clean and well lit. Okay, so this all looks good. I'm going to save the scene again. Okay, we're going to set up a render cam. So create cameras, camera, and let's call it render cam. And this we can look through. So we're going to say look through selected. Back out here, and we're going to turn on our film gate. So we're currently at 540. So let's go to our render settings. We at least want to take it up, it's under common here, we at least want to take it up to 720. If you have enough time, run it at HD 1080. I'm going to go ahead and do that on mine and see what kind of numbers I get here. Okay, everything else looks good there. We are going to run a sequence. We actually need to do a rotation on our character here as well. So we're going to run, let's do 360 frames. EXR is a really great file type to send out if you're going to be compositing a bunch of layers, but we don't really need that just for a turntable animation. We're just going to use a JPEG like we did before with the walk cycle. And quality I think is all good here. The gamma should be fine. We're going to go to, again, name, number, extension. Okay, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to put 360 in here, which is a lot. And everything else here, okay, we're going to bump this up to 8. We know that. Okay. So we've also got that light linking problem here. We need to go ahead and update that. I'm going to just shut this down. I'm going to grab the light back here. I'm going to go under Windows, Relationship Editors, Light Linking, Light Centric, and that's our area light 2. That's actually our rim light. Let's call it rim. This is our key light. Okay, so we're going to select the rim light and we're going to make sure that it is off of the background here. Okay, so open and close your, I'm going to save this again so we don't crash, and open up the viewer here and we can see that that's gone. Okay, it's actually illuminating over here too, so if I turn that off I'm going to lose my shadows, which I don't really want to lose. Tell you what, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it off here, and I'm going to drop that additional light on top of the character to just cast a shadow directly underneath. So I'm going to do the same thing, light linking, relationship editors, and select the key light, turn it off on there, close that. We'll probably close this out so it will update. I'm going to duplicate, I think I'll duplicate this one here and take it up, and I'm going to just put it directly on top of the character like that. Right about there. And let's double check that in the relationship editor that it is affecting the ground plane. So rim 2 is our top light. And yeah, so it's fine there. So it is affecting the ground plane. Let's save our scene again. Open up the Arnold render view. And we can see how bright that is, but it's also got a very nice shadow being cast under there. So let's just turn down the intensity of that. We've got that right here, so let's take it down to like 9. That looks pretty good. What happens if we take it up a little? So it's kind of nice. It's sort of creating a little bit of modeling and a little bit of a spotlight on our character, which I like. sort of focuses the eye. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit. You can also see our shadow right there and what that's doing. So it's constantly saving. You're probably noticing that. Quite often when you kick off a render, this isn't looking through the right camera, so that's the problem. So render camera, render cam, there we go. Now let's see, this is our render cam. There we go. Let's get him in the center. And let's let that kind of do its thing there so we can see what's going on with the shadows. Okay, just bump it and get it going again. Okay, so the viewer for the render view for Arnold is also interactive, which is a nice feature. I can actually click on things and it will highlight the geometry, so it's actually recognizing the geometry as I click on it. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this over a little bit. I'm going to let this render finish and we'll take a look at it.